Hi you guys. In this video I am going to be talking about the different types of interfacing and how to fuse them using a heat press. Some of you who are new may be asking yourself, like, why would you be using a heat press, not an iron? What even is a heat press? Like, come on, Lauren. So this right here is my heat press. This is 16 inches by 24 inches, so it's got a really nice surface area for fusing fabrics. There are many other things you can use a heat press for, like heat transfer vinyl, stuff like that, and I use mine for both. So this is the one I mainly use for interfacing. It can get to be kind of a mess, but you can flip this over, you could buy new ones, you can clean it. This up here is what gets hot. This is called a clamshell heat press. This one doesn't really have a brand. I bought it off of eBay, and I wouldn't say it's the highest quality, but it was a decent price point with the highest surface area. I also have over here a 15 by 15. This was my very first one. I bought it used for like $100, and this one works really well with heat transfer vinyl. Great for t-shirts, so I use it only for that now because it's higher quality. This one, the pressure is very uneven, but it works excellently for fusing fabrics. So just to kind of walk you through it, up here is where you can set how hot your heat press will be, and then it'll start showing you the temperature. If you purchase one, you want to make sure that you understand if it's in Celsius or degrees. Fahrenheit, thanks. I was like, no, that's not what I'm thinking. Anyway, so you want to make sure it's in Celsius or Fahrenheit, because when I first, so this one I have over here is Fahrenheit, this one is Celsius, and I use this one at about 350 degrees Fahrenheit. That fuses things really fast. It works really well. And I tried to set this one to that. Not a good idea. Wouldn't recommend it. There was a lot of smoke. It wasn't good. Anyway, so I set mine to 159 degrees Celsius. Why it's uneven, I don't know. I just liked the way it looked. And right now it's heating up. It's at 107 and climbing, so once it starts I'll be able to actually fuse fabrics and show you guys how I do that. There is a timer. On average, I don't want to fuse anything for longer than 22 seconds. That's at the longest. At the shortest, I do about 10 seconds. On average, about 17 seconds for items. It really just depends on what it is. So if you guys want to take some notes, grab pen and pencil, hit the subscribe button, leave a comment, give a thumbs up, whatever you want to do while we're waiting for this, and I will get started right now. So let me first actually talk about the different kinds of materials you can fuse to. If you are making handbags, you might be using a lot of different vinyls or even leathers. So I'm going to talk through just the few basics that I use on a daily basis. This one here is leather, so it's got a really soft natural skin back, kind of fuzzy or suede, and it's pretty thick. You do not want to get leather wet. I will show you what happens in a minute. So the next one I have is, this is called leather-backed vinyl. Let me lower my light, I'm so sorry. There we go. So it has like kind of a soft fuzzy backing. I purchased this at Joann's, and it's pretty thin. It's not very thick. It's really easy to work with, especially on domestic machines. And then the other one is marine vinyl. This one usually has a woven backing. There we go. Or kind of like a stretch backing, sometimes they call it. And then just a nice matte surface for the most part. It's not super thick, but it can get really thick depending on where you purchase it from. And then the next one is glitter vinyl. They also have something called glitter canvas. I don't often use that, but I do like using glitter vinyl. This is the same backing as marine vinyl. You can see it's like a woven backing. It does have a little bit of stretch to it, so you have to keep that in mind. And then usually it has a really smooth, glossy surface. And then the last one, I don't use this very often, but this is Cork fabric. So those are a lot of the different handbag accent pieces you can use. If you make all cloth handbags, totally cool, no worries. There are two different kinds that I usually use, and that is canvas and cotton, just regular quilting cottons. And oh, we're almost hot enough to start fusing. So that's those fabrics. Now I'm going to tell you about the many interfacing options out there. So I'm going to start with the most basic. This one is used by a lot of pattern designers, and this one is called SF101 or Shape Flex 101. It is by Pellon. It is considered a woven interfacing, so it's different fibers woven together. It has a bumpy side and it has a more smooth side. So the bumpy side has the glue for the interfacing that's going to attach it to your item. So if you're using a heat press or interfacing at home, you would want to lay your fabric wrong side down. No, right side down, sorry, words. So lay your fabric with the print facing down, and then you want to grab your interfacing with the bumpy side down and the smooth side on top. So that's going to fuse it to your fabric. Now what this SF101 does is it just gives your fabric a little more thickness, a little more structure, a little more body. It usually doubles it by about 2. And it does really make your fabrics last longer. A substitute, a higher quality substitute for SF101 is called Wovenfuse. It's by gotinterfacing.com. An amazing lady named Barb sells it, and she's amazing and it ships fast. And this is actually a cheaper pricing option, but it has a more expensive feel. It's really amazing. So this is actually a little bit thicker. It has a little bit more glue on the backing, which is going to make it fuse faster. It's going to last longer. It's incredible. So I'll just go ahead and fuse these interfacings to the fabric so you guys can get an idea of how that works. And I'm just cutting out little scraps. Oh my gosh, I can even see the difference. Like the Wovenfuse from Barb is much thicker. It's more tightly woven than the SF101. So if your heat press doesn't come with a Teflon sheet, I would highly recommend getting one. They aren't really necessary. It's not going to, I can't say that it's going to hurt your fabrics getting it that close to the heat surface, because this is hot. This entire plate gets hot. But then we're going to clamp it down, and I'm just going to let it go for 10 seconds. There's a timer here, which is really nice. And then you can set it to go off at a certain time, minus 23 seconds. If it goes that long, I don't want it to. So when I lift back up on this, it turns the timer off. So that's really nice. Okay, so you can see this is fused really well. I don't know if you can see this, but this one up here is the Wovenfuse, and it's a little bit thicker, tightly woven than the SF101. And I can feel the difference. Like, this is a thicker fabric. It's also, I don't know, it's just easier to sew through. So you can see the wrinkling. It doesn't hold wrinkles as much as the other parts will. Like, after a while, it'll just kind of smooth itself out. It's amazing. So that would be Wovenfuse. So that is Wovenfuse and SF101. These are both considered woven interfacings. There may be others out there, but these are the main two I use, and I would highly recommend Wovenfuse over SF101. Okay, so the next I'm going to talk about are Flex Foam, which is sold by Pellon, and Fusible Fleece, also sold by Pellon. If you're in another country, I live in the US, names might be different, so I'm very sorry. These are mostly to the US. So this is a Fusible Fleece. You can see there's this bumpy side which has the glue, and then there's this smoother side that doesn't have glue. And then for the Flex Foam, there are 3 different kinds. There's one without any glue or fusible, which would be non-fusible Flex Foam. It's sew-in. They would call it sew-in. There is single-sided fusible, and then there is double-sided fusible. I prefer to use the single-sided fusible. So one side has kind of a sparkly sheen to it, I guess you could say, because that's the glue, and then the other side is just soft, smooth. You can't feel the glue. But if you're purchasing double-sided fusible, you're gonna feel it on both sides, and it's a little bit harder to use a heat press and iron it on because both sides are fusible. If you do quilting at all, that would be great because you would be fusing both sides at once, and it's a one and done type thing. Different situations these would be used for. As you can see, this one stands up on its own. It's really squishy. It's easy to flatten. This one does not stand up on its own, but it adds loftiness to your bag, so it's gonna be thicker without being buoyant, as I would call this. It's not gonna stand up on its own unless you use something like 809 or Decovil Light, which I will get into. So I'll go ahead and fuse these to a scrap piece of fabric as well, just to show you guys how I do it. So fabric is wrong side up, and then I'm going to put my interfacing down like that. The issue that comes up with fusing foam is that the glue is underneath these layers. So usually what I do is I'll have like a spray bottle, and I'll just kind of spritz it very lightly and then press down. And this kind of helps activate the glue a little bit better. And I'll let it go for 10 seconds, and then I will flip it over and do the other side unless I'm using vinyl. I would never, ever, ever recommend fusing the right side of vinyl. I will show you what happens. Okay, so that was 20 seconds, longer than I meant to, but you can see it's fused in most places. This is what I mean by the uneven heating surface. So just to secure, make sure it's all nice and fused, I'm gonna do it for a few seconds on the right side. And I've interfaced things for as long as 30 seconds. Nothing bad has happened as far as quilting cottons go, etc. So it's going to be really hot, so be careful, but it is nice and fused. You can see this fabric stands up on its own. So that is what Flex Foam will do for you. The next one I'm going to add is Fusible Fleece. I really enjoy using Fusible Fleece in combination with other fabrics, and it's great for linings because it adds a little more stability to your bag without adding that buoyancy that the Flex Foam will. For Fusible Fleece, if I am fusing this way, I always add water. Otherwise, I could literally have this on for 30 seconds and it wouldn't fuse at all. But that little bit of water helps activate the glue on the interfacing. So we can let that go for 10 seconds. And again, you can flip it over and do the other side. But I don't have to. Like, it's good. That water, that little bit of water, or if you have a steam press, really helps get that on there. This one is Heavyweight Fusible Fleece, number 973. I buy it from Walmart.com. I usually am able to find it cheapest there. But I really like using this with quilting cottons for linings of bags. It adds a little bit of loftiness. It's easier to sew. I love it. So that is 3 interfacings done. And now I will talk about the last 4 on my list. We'll start with 809 and Decovil Light. And I'm just using big scraps. So these are considered non-woven interfacings. This is 809. This one is really hard to fuse with an iron. I don't know why, but once I got a heat press, it fuses like that. It's incredible. You don't really need steam with it. I find it fuses better without it. And then this is Decovil Light, which is the love of my life. I was a big fan of 809 on handbags until I discovered Decovil Light. They are very similar, but this is about 2 layers of this. So you can see this one is a little transparent and this one is very opaque. This one, the whole side of the back is glossy, so it fuses like that. It does not hold wrinkles. It's awesome. This one, however, is a wrinkle mess. It's insane. So you can see there is that shiny side. Come on, shiny side. Anyway, but then you can feel the difference. This one's really smooth, kind of waxy. So I'm gonna grab a piece of fabric and fuse these on, show you guys the difference. 809 is very inexpensive. It's easy to find on sale, so that's one reason I still like using it, especially for card slots, that sort of thing. But Decovil Light, man. Decovil Light. Okay, so I've got these 2 scrap pieces. I'm just gonna lay them right side down, wrong side up. If your fabric is wrinkly, you do not want to press it with your interfacing. Just kind of lay it, smooth it out, and give it a quick 3-second pressing, and then it's ready to add the interfacing. So you can see they're nice and non-wrinkly now. Okay, so I've got my scraps here. I'm gonna lay my 809, my Decovil, and just kind of verify that you've got the correct side facing up and the glue side facing down. And I'm just gonna press them for 10 seconds. That's my average pressing time. Okay. So, oh man, you can just feel how nice this is. So they are very similar. This one here is 809. This is the Decovil Light. You can kind of see the difference. Now I'm gonna ball them up. And these wrinkles are gonna kind of smooth out. This one is gonna hold them. You can kind of see it's added some wrinkling here. And you might think like, well, what do the wrinkles matter once it's interfaced? You're gonna be turning your bags right sides out. People are gonna be using them, smashing them down. You hope they don't smash them down, but I've seen it happen and it's awful. Anyway, so this Decovil Light, it kind of smooths out over time and holds its shape. It's really nice. So I can't say that I would recommend one of these over the other because I use them for different things. So I use 809 on card slots, zipper pocket facings, in slip pockets, just kind of in places that you don't need to use an expensive interfacing because this one is so much cheaper. For Decovil Light, I use this on the outside of wallets. I use it on bag pieces. It fuses so quickly to vinyl, it's gonna blow your mind if you try it. So if you want to make a bag out of all vinyl or leather, this one is gonna add structure without you guys. So the last set of interfacings that I will show you are Peltex, which is mostly recommended for the bottom of bags. You can see it's pretty thick. It's got a really rough, bumpy side. There you go, you can see that there. This is the rough, bumpy side is the one with the glue. And then there is Decovil Heavy, which is this one. You can see it's kind of a yellowed, it's hard to see. It's more of a cream color versus white. This one, Decovil Heavy, is not as thick as Peltex. However, it does fuse faster, it fuses better, and it doesn't wrinkle. So these I mostly fuse to vinyls, leathers, etc. because that's the bottom of the bag for the most part. So just really quick, I'm going to grab a piece of marine vinyl to fuse these two. I'm not going to fuse them at the same time because they do fuse differently. So this is the Decovil Light. I'm just going to lay that on top of this marine vinyl. I would highly recommend you do not ever fuse vinyl for longer than 10 seconds. And this one might only need 4 because of how fast it fuses. So the longer you press it, the more likely it is you're gonna ruin the finish, the surface of the vinyl. I cannot tell you how many pieces I've had to throw away because I fused them way too long. So that was 4 seconds, and this is fused. This is the Decovil Light. Decovil Light makes me happy. Oh, I'm sorry, it's heavy. It's heavy. It's not light. I'm sorry. Crap. Too bad I don't edit these videos. So, a lot of times for a bottom of a bag, I will use 2 layers of the Decovil Heavy. It's not light, it's heavy. Or I will add a layer of Decovil Light and then a layer of Decovil Heavy. It gives a lot of structure to the bag. And then for Peltex, I try not to use Peltex as much as I used to. It's really finicky, but I will still show you guys because I still have a lot of it and it is cheaper. For Peltex, you want to use water. So with vinyl, I'm just gonna spray it because the water is not going to affect it. And then I'm gonna press it for 10 seconds. Well, I'll press it for 5. There we go. That's the same amount of time as the Decovil Light, heavy. And you can see it's not done yet. It's still peeling at the edges. It's not fused all the way. It's not good. So I'm gonna do it a little bit longer. Just 5 more seconds. Okay, but you can see that has really heated up the vinyl. You can see the outline of it, and then I used a little too much water, that's my bad, and it kind of changed the texture. So that's what you want to not happen. And look at that. It's still coming up. Screw you, Peltex. Okay. So I'm going to show you what Peltex looks like with leather and kind of like a do's and don'ts. Okay. So when you are, if you decide to use Peltex with leather, totally okay. What I do then is I spray the Peltex only and just kind of rub that water around. Kind of get off any excess and then lay it down for fusing. I made the mistake of spraying and the water and the heat shrinks the leather and discolor it. It's not a good situation. Okay, so that was 7 seconds. And I did have too much water. So that's what happens when you use Peltex with leather. Wah, wah. Oh, look at that. And it's still coming up. This was a different piece, by the way. If that happens, you can kind of just stretch your leather back out and hope that those watermarks go away, but it is unlikely. There's something called mink oil that you can purchase that helps remove those discolorations. So yeah, let me show you what happens to vinyl that has been pressed way too long, or if you decide to be adventurous and fuse the correct side of vinyl, or I guess it would be the wrong side to fuse, but anyway, this is just heat on the vinyl and what happens. Okay, so that was 8 seconds. And these vinyls got very thin, very, very thin, you can see. And this is just bad vinyl. You can see all the different bubbles from how a texture was added. It's not good. And then the glitter vinyl, it'll start to cool down, but the glossy texture has changed, and now you can see the surface of my rubber mat here. It'll kind of start to go away, but that's why you want to be careful and not fuse these for too long. So I highly, highly, highly recommend the Decovil Heavy when you are fusing with vinyls. It fuses faster. It's not gonna add any issues like that. Yeah, I think that's it. Those are the most used vinyls for me, or the vinyls. Those are the most used interfacings for me. If you guys have any questions, feel free to leave a comment down below. I'll try to get back to you as soon as I can. If not, I mean, it's kind of an awesome community that just kind of helps each other. Bye, guys.